Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is well. Welcome to the third webinar in this series for Local Authority Point of Contact and the Green Club programme. Today, we will be covering information on Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the programme. For those who don't know me, my name is Paul Regan and I'm here with my colleague Thomas Rooney. We're both from the Eastern Midlands Carroll. To start off, just to say in a few months back, we did a survey of all local authority point of contacts to assess what the requirements were, information gaps we had. So we've developed this webinar based on the needs of that came out of that survey. So we have a number of speakers from the GAA today, and we also have a number of speakers from the local authority themselves. So we've broken up the webinar into three different sections. So the first section will be the GAA Green Club Program team speaking. Then we've got three people from the local authority speaking next, and then we'll finish off with an open forum discussion. And as in previous webinars, we will record the first element of that, and then we will turn off the recording for the final part of the open discussion. So from the GAA, today we've got Pádraig Fallon, who's the chair of the Green Club Programme Steering Group. We've got Jimmy Darcy, who's the Youth Leadership and Sustainability Manager for the GAA. We've got Mida Nisulawan, who's the Sustainability Advisor to the Green Club Programme. And we've got Kurt Reinhardt, who's the Facilities Manager at the Connacht GAA Centre of Excellence in Beacon, County Mayo. Has also played a key role in progressing the Green Club Programme along not only in County Mayo, but in other counties in Connacht as well. On the local authority side, we've got Susan Lee, who's the Community Climate Action Officer from Waterford and City and County Council, excuse me. Tara Smith, the Community Climate Action Officer from Cavan County Council, and Sharon Cameron, the Environmental Awareness Officer from Mayo County Council. So I will hand over now to Pádraig, who has a few words to say.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you to you and your colleagues in Carroll for organising this meeting. Welcome everyone to this webinar, and thank you for giving of your time. Paul has introduced myself, Jimmy, Mida and Kurt, all from the GAA side. So cooperation with the local authorities has proven very successful for the GAA and its clubs and counties, without any doubt. I myself and my club, Clan Gael in Dundalk, can vouch for the excellent support we got from Louth County Council a number of years ago. This cooperation is central to the objectives of the Green Club programme. We appreciate that there are varied levels of interaction from our clubs with their respective local authorities presently. We know the Green Club programme is the correct strategy for the GAA, and we know that all clubs are thinking more and more every day on sustainability. And for them to be successful, they will need local authority expertise and guidance going forward. So on behalf of the Green Club Steering Committee, I would like to thank you all for your support to date, and we look forward to our continued cooperation in making our sporting organisation more sustainable into the future. So thank you again and welcome, and I'll hand over to Jimmy Darcy.
Thanks very much, Pádraig, and good morning, everybody. I'm just beginning to share my screen there. Hopefully you can see that. Can you get some feedback? Yeah.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I can see that.
Great. Okay, as introduced, folks, I'm the GAA Sustainability Manager, and we're just going to give you some updates on the progress of our Green Club programme to date and plans for the future this morning. It's a programme that is fundamentally a manifestation of a relationship, a memorandum of understanding with the County, City and Management Association. And that relationship would extend back to the recognition of the GAA as a Sustainable Development Goal champion under the Champion programme that the Department of the Environment established in 2019, alongside, at the time, Carlow County Council. And as a fellow SDG champion, we came together and signed an MOU with the CCMA back in January 2020. And that led to the Green Club programme being launched later that year, based, I suppose, on the knowledge that through both our networks, we had the power to make positive change. Mida, I might ask you to speak a little bit to the regulatory context that we are aligned to in common with our LA partners using this slide.
Yeah, so when we're talking about the club programme, we are talking about, as we've said a lot in the past, responding to club demand of clubs just wanting to get involved and do the right thing. But we're very conscious that what we're doing at club level has to feed into regional, national and international level. And that's what we've trying to do since the start. So I suppose our first encounters with our first meetings with the local authorities came by from your own Action 150 there in the Climate Action Charter. And since then, there's been various things in the iterations of the National Climate Action Plan that we've tried to take on board and reflect. And we're delighted, no small thanks to people on this call today, to have the Green Clubs explicitly referenced in the local authority climate action plans in local authorities across the country. And that really gives support, a kind of external but also internal validation to clubs, and lets them know as well that their actions aren't isolated, but they are part of this wider community effort, which is something we want to continue to grow. And obviously we want to ensure that we're not just putting all the onus on clubs to take the action, but the actions of the club are increasingly feeding up through management levels in the GAA. And that's something we've been working at as well, to develop a strategy so the GAA can support clubs with policies and guidance in specific areas. And that also the GAA then is reflecting wider, not only the National Climate Action Plan, but looking out to Europe, looking at the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, to which the GAA itself is not it's not applicable to GAA itself at the moment, but it's great guidance for big organisations like the GAA to align themselves with. So we're trying to take this on board. So clubs don't see this; they're not worried with this, but that the actions they're taking feed into all these various regulations or guidance or whatever they may be. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks, Mita. Thanks, and I suppose partnerships are very much fundamental to how we feel as an organisation we contribute to the response to climate change. And partnerships, goal 17 was one of the first goals that I suppose was aligned to what the government thought we could sponsor. And apart from the climate action regional officers and yourselves, it's the expert partnerships across the 5 thematic areas that ensure that we're providing the best guidance to our constituents and to our units through the toolkit. It is an all-island programme, so we're working with equivalent entities in the 6 counties to ensure that all our clubs on the island experience the same opportunity. And that phase 1 of the Green Club programme over 2021-2022 produced this toolkit, an online toolkit full of case studies and tools and guidelines to help our clubs find the right actions for them to take in their contexts. And we then, I suppose, broadened what our vision for the programme and opened the first national call out to clubs to join the Green Club programme at the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023. And that's phase 2. It's currently coming towards its culmination. We've approximately 200 clubs representing all 32 counties in the programme, and we're guiding them through a series of steps we'll look at in a moment towards recognition. And we're also trying to ensure that all of the clubs in our Gaelic Games network, well over 2,000, are aware of the toolkit and using it independently or potentially with your support locally. So those milestones that our formal clubs have to navigate are represented on the top of the slide there. As we move towards our recognition event for the end of phase 2, which is scheduled for Saturday, November the 9th in Croke Park, we'll be helping our clubs achieve the basic threshold for being recognised as an official GAA Green Club. And that threshold is the implementation of 2 initiatives from across the 5 thematic areas. You might say that's quite low, and a lot of our clubs are implementing a much broader set of projects, but 2 allows all the clubs in the programme to make a positive start and achieve status that they can then build on. And we're asking them to log all their progress on an online portal over the next 2 months as we move towards November 9th. We've been supporting those clubs throughout phase two with a series of online and face-to-face events. Obviously, when we're holding the national programme from central administration, we can't be everywhere, but we tried to most definitely have a presence in each province. And you can see the regional gatherings down there that were held over last winter and spring really added to the sense of community that's been built up through the programme. We held one event there in each province. In terms of how do we promote the toolkit, how do we promote the programme to our constituents? Well, we have our own internal newsletter. It would appear in that, and we publish articles on the GAA website and on the GAA social media. Now, the success of those ways of communicating with our constituents is limited. It's a network that's been bombarded with information, and to try and get the message of all the different programs through can be difficult. But we've noticed a very significant increase in interest in the GAA Green Club programme over the last year in particular. And we've also had the opportunity through those different opportunities represented on the screen there to get word of our programme out to bigger audiences. We had an activation in the 2023 football semi-final, 80,000 people listening to interviews about the GAA Green Club programme during half-time, represented on the RTE Heated TV programme broadcast last November 1st. We've been represented at a number of conferences, and we're a case study in the National Sustainable Development Goal Implementation Plan. So we're trying to get the message out there, but one of the main ways we think we can do it is to align more in a better way with our traditional structures at provincial and county level. And we've been using the work of John Prenty and Kurt, who's with us here down there, as inspiration for a network of county and regional grounds, but also county and regional decentralised administration of support for Green Club actions. And I know we'll be looking at case studies later on of how different versions of this have been successful over the last couple of years. But I suppose essentially what we're trying to support on our side is the establishment of a localised group, structure, a committee, whatever you want to call it there, that has representation from the GAA county board level on one side, representation from your own local authority jurisdictions, and potentially has representation from regional expert partner representatives. And we've seen where that's working successfully, like in the experiences we're going to hear from Mayo, Cavan and Waterford. We've seen lots of positive come out of it. The establishment of sustainable energy communities, plans across all the 5 thematic areas for county and club grounds, inputs into club strategic planning processes, and a lot of local events held to build awareness, and not only in the GAA but in the broader local community network. So that's a model that we're really going to push over the next couple of months, alongside a broadened club-led programme and the development of a sustainability strategy nationally that I might ask Meada to come back in briefly on again. Phase 3 will open the same day that phase 2 closes, so November 9th, and it'll be a 2-year journey again for the club-led programme across 2024 and 2025. And we will be hoping, through the establishment of more county-based structures, to increase engagement with the programme on our side, but with the resources that you provide locally on your side also, so that we can begin to see a greater impact for this initiative. So, Meada, if you wouldn't mind speaking a little to this slide in the next. Meada, you're on mute.
Every time. Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. It's very much just expanding on what you've been saying, is that our focus from the start has been on the clubs for 2 reasons. One is that the clubs were the units within the GAA really pushing for a Green Club programme, pushing for support, really wanting to take action. And secondly, you know, the the clubs are what the GAA is founded on. Really, they're at the heart of the GAA, so it made sense for us to focus and build a bottom-down programme. And I know we have a few local authority speakers who are going to talk about how it's been working on a county level. And that's, as Jimmy mentioned, that's something we want to learn from those great cases, the successes and challenges of those, and build a national county-led model to support clubs and county boards in their action. And where we are now is looking as well at a sustainability strategy at GAA level. And that's for some really practical reasons, and some of them are related to the clubs, in that there are areas where the clubs, rather than going out to individual clubs with guidance, there's things we can't necessarily cover in the toolkit. I'm thinking of areas like if we want to change, well, be careful what I'm saying, but look at the circularity around sports gear is something that's of, has a considerable climate impact of interest to all sports organisations. That's something that makes much more sense to think about and engage with partners and stakeholders with at national level, and then pass our best guidance on to clubs. And the same in other areas, like maybe holistically around the management of pitches and grounds. There's more we know we can do at club at national level and feed that information down to club level. So that's what we want to do there. Yeah. You're on mute yourself now, Jimmy.
Apologies, folks. We might not just acknowledge as well, I suppose, how and maybe questions or perspectives will come up on it a little later. The experience of GAA clubs in applying for the Community Climate Action Fund. We know of some great successes, so thank everybody for supporting that, and we hope that the resources and supports we're putting in on our side helps some of those clubs in making that application too. Want to come in there, Mida?
Yeah, and just on the CAF, I know it was a new project and probably challenging for a lot of county councils and very new to community applicants, but what I think it really did at club for us within the GAA, it was something that really forged those connections between GAA clubs and local authorities, which was something that great to see, and hopefully those engagements will last beyond the project. And we'd hope, as I'm sure local authorities hope, that in the future it's not only the GAA clubs but community partnerships build out of this. So it was it was a significant learning for everyone involved. It was great to see so many success stories come out of it for the GAA, both within the green clubs and without. And I know there was some good successes as well in the shared island strand and Strand 1A, which was really heartening. And we've also had a number of other significant funding stories, I suppose. One is up in the UK National Lottery. We were successful in the Community Climate and Nature Fund, and while that's focused on the 6 counties, there's resources. We were able to hire resources, staffing resources with that, which was great for us because we really had a kind of a lack of support there, and that they'll be able to support not only clubs within the 6 counties but clubs in Ulster as a whole, developing with this focus on the biodiversity programme, but it is a climate fund, so looking at engagement, community partnerships and climate engagement through the GAA through that fund over a 3-year project. And engagement also with other sports organisations is a key part of the kind of multiplier effect of that project. We saw as well earlier this year, or was it the end of last year, the last round of the sports capital grants, which the results and the awards haven't been announced yet, but for the first time we saw an explicit section modelled quite extensively on the Green Club toolkit for where you could get points for being engaged in environmental and climate action, which is really encouraging. It was quite light touch there. Probably up to the discretion. There wasn't clear marking guidance, so we'll see, but we can see that will expect that to expand in future rounds of the sports capital grants, and really significantly for not only the GAA but other sports organisations in the recent call for the large scale sports infrastructure fund. So that's really for really big sports and facility development projects, so more at county or regional level than at club level. There was an extensive section that had to be completed on responses and planning for environmental and climate goals, really well developed by the Ryan Umper Orthdog Sport, and we were able to support. We were really glad that we were in a position to be able to support some of our counties applying to that. Again, it would be a while before the results are there, but it's really great to see this turn towards environmental criteria in sports grants, and I think it for us it really validates what we're doing grassroots up to ensure that we're future-proofing clubs not only against climate challenges but against challenges for participation, grounds development, etc.
Thanks a million, Mita. Paul, I know we're running towards the end of our time, so just briefly, maybe to give a sense to those on the call of other work that we're looking at. We are at national level looking at some economies of scale around energy, particularly given that a lot of our clubs now have LED or maybe wanting to move to LED floodlights for their facilities. So just some of the different things we're looking at there that we can maybe bring a collective learning or a collective lobbying or a collective resourcing to that would help our units reduce their energy consumption and be more sustainable in energy, both potentially generation, but in a use context. We are also part of an Erasmus Plus funded project called Access for Short, Achieving Circularity in Cities Through Environmental Sustainability of Sports. And we're working with some of our Dublin City Council colleagues there, as well as international sporting units, FC Porto and the Danish and Welsh Football Associations. And we're looking at kind of traffic management and sustainable travel options in the North Inner City in Dublin when you're accessing venues like Bohemians or Croke Park. And we're also developing a particularly specific component of the Green Club Toolkit at the moment using Strand 2 Community Climate Action Fund finance to build specific case studies around engagement with particular seldom heard populations through the GAA network, which hopefully allow us to be more inclusive in our decision making around climate action with all members of our communities, and we'll be publishing that into the toolkit early next year. Just finished it. And so yeah, our vision there is really strengthen this mutual network and structure that we're building together to have real impact across all the island and all of our communities in response to the challenges we're facing. So I think we're handing back to you at this point, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy and Mita, for all that. We have time for a few questions based on the content that was just delivered, but I might start with a few questions myself. Could you just talk a little bit more about phase 3? So is there limits to how many clubs that go into phase 3? What's the time frame for applying over to phase 3?
Yeah, sure. So the recognition event in Croke Park for the phase 2 clubs that report on implementing 2 initiatives. That's November 9th in Croke Park, as I say. We'll also launch the application process that day for phase 3. It'll be an open application process that all GAA, LGFA or Camogie clubs can apply to. And our expectation, given what we've learned with gradually expanding our healthy club program, is that if we don't put a limit on applications, that we should we expect get in the mid hundreds, so 300, 400, 500, which we think we'd be able to manage centrally. So our expectation is that we won't have to put a limit on it, and our expectation based on experience in other programs is that we, even without putting a limit, we would get a very healthy result of 300, 400, 500 clubs, and that we'd be able to manage them through the current model within a formal club program. But we do really see the potential for expansion as being through the establishment of the collaborative structures between the local authority and the GAA locally, and decentralising the knowledge base, but also the resource base to make it more relevant to the club and to what's going on in the geographical and I suppose political landscape locally. That they're the 2 components of phase 3, as well as the development of a national strategy. We have been providing the clubs in phase 2 with seed funding. If we get a lot of clubs, a big increase, we may not be able to do that to the same extent, and we may look to provide the clubs with incentives in other ways, but maybe doing something around grant applications centrally. We want to explore where we can get added value by centralizing something, but also realize the potential of the structures we have that are decentralized to operate locally, and to get the balance between those two things.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. One final question. We spoke about this before. So one of the things that came up in the survey from the point of contacts was the level of engagement across the country. So in some counties, we have really high engagement with clubs and local authorities, and others it's kind of low or non-existent currently. And something we mentioned before was that when there's a county rep in place from the GA side working with the local authority point of contact, that engagement seems to be higher. So it's just that's implementing that kind of structure you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and again, it's just the way our organization works. Okay, so and it is another additional role. It can be perceived as another additional role that we're asking our county administration to identify a champion for. So we've moved away from being very prescriptive, saying it had to be the facilities officer or it had to be the planning and training officer, whoever a county board want to designate to us now as their champion for this area of work. We accept and we try to hopefully support that person and then facilitate making contact with yourselves in the relevant local authority in order to potentially set up that structure for our mutual benefit. So all counties haven't identified that person to us. We're still working with those that haven't on our side. But hopefully we're seeing an increase in counties saying to us, can you help us do this? And hopefully that's reciprocated on your side, and the timing is right for a county structure to be put in place if there's not one there already.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jim. Guys, we have time for 2 questions if anyone wants to put their hand up on any of the content that's been presented so far. I'll give you a second to raise your hand if you want. Okay, I'm thinking everyone must be happy so far. So we might move to the next section, which will be the local authority speakers. So up front we have, or first I should say, we've got Susan Lee, the Community Climate Action Officer in Waterford City and County Council. So Susan, whenever you're ready there.
Yeah, can everyone see that? I'll just make a big screen.
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, perfect. Hi, I'm Susan Lee. I'm the Community Climate Action Officer in Waterford City and County Council. I'm just going to talk a bit about the pilot programme we ran this year. It was an amalgamation of the Green Clubs and the SCAI Sustainable Energy Community programme. So we did open it up to all 51 clubs in Waterford, not just Green Clubs. We started planning it, I'd say, back last autumn, and it started in January, and it actually ended only last week. So it was made up of a 5-part workshop series. So before I go kind of jump into it, I'll just explain quickly what a sustainable energy community is, just in case someone on the call doesn't know what it is. Basically, it's an SEI program, fully funded. There's absolutely no cost to the group. Basically, a group is assigned a mentor who looks at their energy with them. So they can answer questions, they can seek expert advice for them, run events with them. There's the option to do an energy master plan. Yvonne Byrne is the Waterford mentor. She's great with working with groups, and she was the co-pilot on this program and wouldn't have happened without her. So the pilot, it was basically a collaborative program between Waterford City and County Council, the GAA Green Clubs, the Waterford Gaelic Sports Clubs, and the SEC program. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to create a collective SEC in Waterford made up of as many Gaelic sports grounds as we could get. So why have Yvonne go out work with all these individual clubs when we could pull everyone together? Because all these clubs, they're all different, but they also kind of share so many of the same issues. They work collectively, they've got similar buildings. So it's just like a clever way to kind of use resources. So them being an SEC, obviously the main focus of the whole pilot program was going to be energy, but we wanted to expand it to also look at the different themes in the Green Club toolkit. So then we had workshops also not only on energy, but also travel, waste, water, and biodiversity. So what we really, really didn't want to do was like reinvent the wheel. The toolkit is absolutely fantastic. I sent it to so many groups who are different sporting groups, non-sporting groups, everyone. Um, and also you've got the environmental awareness officers out there doing great work, the water officers, you've got the new biodiversity officers, there's different programs, there's different grants. So there's already so many supports out there. What we kind of wanted to do was kind of get everything under one roof for this program to kind of showcase it all to the groups. Now there was some key people we spoke with during the design stage that were really, really important and really helpful as we kind of shaped what the pilot program could be. We had a great chat with Jimmy about looking kind of at the Green Club's toolkit and what the kind of aims of that and everything was. Also, we talked with the Waterford GAA, Camogie and LGFA boards. Ella Ryan, our environmental awareness officer, gave great feedback. And we also spoke to 2 members of clubs, one who was part of a green club, so signed up to the program, and I would say a club that were very active in this space, and also a non-green club who I would say wouldn't be as active, very much kind of newer in their journey. These conversations were absolutely great because it gave myself and Yvonne a chance to get kind of the lay of the land for what was happening specifically in the Waterford clubs. It was really important to get support higher up in the chain and to show the kind of the value of doing this pilot. And also the clubs know their boards. If myself or Yvonne reached out, they might know us, they might not, but they'd all know their county board. And a really important, and I know perhaps obvious bit of advice we got, but I really think it's so important to constantly remember, is that the clubs are in the business of playing and winning matches, not doing climate projects. So their focus is on the game. It's getting funding for equipment, it's organising matches, it's minding the facilities, it's things like that. So when we go and we ask them, can you also consider climate change and the circular economy and things like that, we need to keep it, we felt we had to really keep it relevant to them. So people only have, these are all volunteers, they only have so much time and bandwidth in their lives to do things. So we really wanted to keep it practical and point out the positives. And often it was the kind of the financial incentives that gave the justification for looking at sustainability and climate action within a club. And also it's what we have found and we've heard from a lot of clubs, it's typically just 1 or 2 within the club who drive this type of thing. So it's kind of supporting them. So the county boards were actually the ones who kindly sent out the email inviting the groups. And again, that was really important. And the interested groups, they filled out a survey. It gave us a great baseline for where they were all at. Jimmy kindly shared his template with us. And they also sent us back their energy self-assessment, again, from the toolkit, just so we kind of understood where everybody was at. From the survey, it became very clear energy was the topic they were almost interested in because that's the big spend for a lot of clubs. So it's kind of cutting that down. We also looked at the energy audits, who had them, who didn't. Anyone under the 10K we saw we could do for them as a local authority, and anyone who had the over 10,000 on the annual energy spend, we kind of really encouraged them to sign up to the SEI's energy audit voucher. 8 out of 51 clubs in Waterford signed up in the end. We were actually told that this was quite a high number, so that is something as well that like to kind of manage expectations. So we got 8 clubs in the end. We got a nice spread across Waterford, mainly rural, but we also got suburban and urban. So the programme was basically broken up into 5 workshops. They ran from January to September. It was a mix of online and in person. So we'd go to specific clubs. Some clubs we chose because they had done loads in the area. Other clubs, they had potential, or there was something about the location we specifically wanted to look at. And then each workshop had a particular topic or theme that we focused on. And then we got experts to kind of come and to talk to that group. So it was energy engineers, it was biodiversity officers, environmental awareness officers, community water officers, and people from an active travel team. Each workshop ran kind of similarly. We'd look at the survey results. kind of give the 8 clubs a sense of like what you share in common, what's different. Then we'd have presentations from the facilitators, the experts, and then a Q&A session. It was quite informal, which was really great in a way, because people were talking, they were sharing their experiences, asking questions. And then we would often do a club tour. So we kind of look around the actual clubs. So like that was really great. So say for Energy, now Ballygunner GAA Club is quite a large club, kind of sports centre, but it was really like we looked at everything. We looked at the boiler. Our energy engineer shook the windows, like those seals could be replaced. We looked at like, oh, these lights could be censored. Like it was so practical in its approach. For the biodiversity, we were looking at the invasive species that were around Fane Cappoquin GAA, also looking at the planting they had already done, the great stuff they were looking at with their water as well. And then like there was discussions on maybe they shouldn't be personalizing kits for their players under a certain age group, so they could be kind of reshared again. So there was loads of kind of conversation, and it was kept very focused. And what we did as well on the last workshop, which was really great, was we kind of did this like speed dating come one-on-one time with experts. So the clubs in advance of that session basically sent in the 2 Green Club themes that they wanted to get time again with the expert on, and to have a discussion with them about their specific club in private. So that was really great, and thankfully all the experts were willing to come back for and give us another evening of their time. So things if anyone was to do, if we were to do it again, say things we would do, I think you could reduce the number of workshops. Like most of the workshops are on from 7 to 9, so you are asking people to give up a big chunk of their time. And I would say that attendance slightly started to drop over time. We were typically getting about 2 to 3 coming from the club, and then so I think you could shorten it down. Do not plan anything for the summer months. That was potentially our mistake, but the reason it ended in September was getting anyone after June on the same date was impossible. I would potentially just question, were we talking to the converted 8 out of the 51 clubs? A lot of them, it was a mixture of people who really had done nothing in this space, and some who had, but the majority had. So it's that kind of interesting, if we were to run it again, who would be the next 8? Would we struggle to get people to give up that much time? And things that worked really well, I cannot stress the club visits. They were, and we got a lot of positive feedback from the actual clubs who were part of the program. They just which we all like to see what our neighbours doing, but like it is great to kind of see practically things that have gone in, things they could do. I really can't stress how much everyone gained from that. Getting county board engagement was also really important. Michael Murphy was fantastic. He was very supportive of everything myself and Yvonne did in Waterford. I understand that the experts who came, or these are people who work in this area and everything, but they were great to give up their evenings. They were very interested and willing to work with the clubs. There was a great atmosphere every night in the workshops. It was a really good opportunity for the groups to learn. Like there was a lot of experience sharing, people asking questions, and I think that it wasn't them kind of being talked at. We kind of tried to avoid that. We really tried to keep it focused on the practical, what they could do, how much was that going to cost them, things that would benefit, things they should consider. And this one would be, we were lucky in the last point, and this might be a hard thing it's very difficult to engineer this type of thing, but like a lot of the clubs who signed up had either secured funding or had applied for funding that would allow them to do these type of projects. So a few of them were grant recipients from the Community Climate Action Programme, the local Circular Economy grant. So they had having that capital funding to do these type of projects. It was great because it kind of allowed them kind of see a way to go forward after they had kind of maybe tweaked their plans from the workshops and things like that. And then finally, what we kind of want to do next with this. So again, last Monday was our last session, but we want to do up some case studies on this. So we want to really capture what work these clubs have done, but also a lot of them are planning things for the next 6 to 12 months. We really want to capture that as a way to kind of maybe capture the attention of the other 43 who didn't sign up. But again, keeping it really practical and focused on what the groups can do and what other clubs can learn from them, and potentially looking at doing an energy master plan with them as they are an SEC. We are hoping to use the Climate Action Work Engagement Fund for this. So that's the new grant. I'm sure many of you heard of it. It was announced a few weeks ago. This is all to kind of look at engagement, workshops, training, network and things, which can be really important. Like a lot of the technology there to make clubs green clubs and to kind of reduce their environmental impact. It's all there. But sometimes it's just getting the people, getting everyone involved. So this way could be a great thing to kind of capture the attention. The deadline is the 4th of October and it's being run through Community Foundation Ireland. So that's just a quick overview of the kind of pilot program we ran in Waterford. And thanks for listening. If you've got any questions, I think we might be doing it later or now, I'm not sure.
Thanks very much, Susan. Yeah, we'll hit the questions when this section is finished, I think. But just to remind everybody that you can also write your question in the chat function as well, and we'll pick it up in the open discussion. We're going to move on to Tara Smith now, the Community Climate Action Officer in Cavan County Council. So over to you, Tara.
That is great. Thank you, Paul. Bear me one moment. Can everybody see?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Yeah, they're appearing. That's great. Thanks very much. And thanks, Susan, for your presentation. That is going to be a very hard act to follow. So I suppose I'll be bringing it back a couple of steps, which may be relevant to some of the points of contact within the local authorities that are only starting off maybe on their journey engaging with the clubs in their own county. So I'll quickly just bring you through what we've done in the last 12 months since I was appointed to this role in Cavan. So I'll start off going through the background and the initial engagement, the establishment then of a Green Clubs steering group within Cavan, our first Green Clubs orientation event, which we held back in October of last year, so just under a year since we commenced this. Club engagement to date, the Community Climate Action Fund, which has been very successful with GAA clubs in Cavan, and our plans for the future. So going back to what Susan has just presented on, I suppose it's very apt in its timing for us here in Cavan, in that we are looking at going into that phase at looking at the establishment of an SEC and the development of an energy master plan for the clubs in the county. So Susan, I'll definitely be following up with you again after this session. So just to give some information on the background, I was appointed as the local authority point of contact in September of last year. So it's relatively, I suppose, fresh in that it's just 11 months since we started the initial engagement from October last year with clubs in the county. And to bring it back to the very beginning, and it was alluded to as well by Mida and by Jimmy, in that it is so helpful and important and determines the success of the engagement to start with if the county board has a rep in place. And for us, we are very, very fortunate in that Declan Smith, their centre in the photograph, is the appointed contact for us within the county board in Cavan. And he has a genuine passion and drive for the delivery of the Green Clubs programme in Cavan. And without that, I'm not sure the success that we would have today would have been achieved. So I can't thank Declan enough for his support on this. And we sat down, I remember last September, and we said, look, how can we start the initial engagement with clubs? So in Cavan, we have 40 clubs in total. We had no kind of formal engagement with them at that point. And we said, look, the first thing we might do is sit down and look at that structure that was presented by Jimmy at the start of this presentation and look at the county board structure, having the local authority point of contact myself, having Declan as the county board point of contact, pulling in from Crow Park, SEAI contacts, and seeing how we could formulate an orientation event that we would hold then going forward. So the establishment of a Green Club steering group was, I suppose, the first core step that we took. And we met every couple of weeks throughout September and October to pull together an agenda of how we were going to invite clubs to, I suppose, a get-together in person to talk to them about the Green Clubs programme, because for a lot of them, they may not have had that engagement to start with. They weren't aware of what was involved, the practical steps that they can take, and also then obviously the financial support that would or may be required to deliver on some of that. So you'll see here, this is just a picture from the night itself. So back in October of last year, we held an event in the Hotel Kilmore in Cavan. We had near full attendance from all clubs in the county, which was excellent. And I just want to thank again, who's on the call here, Pádraig Fallon, who's the chair of the Green Clubs Committee, and also I see Kurt there from Connacht GAA Centre of Excellence, who came and gave, I suppose, a realistic and a practical view of what can be achieved by clubs on a local level, how that culminates into a county-wide level, and then again feeds into the national objectives of the Green Clubs programme, which was really, really, I suppose, impactful on the night. But in addition, apart from the speakers, so we had representatives, as I said, from Crow Park, from SEAI in terms of the supports there that were available, from the Future Fit SEC programme as well, Cavan County Council, so myself in terms of promoting the Community Climate Action Fund, which still at that point back in October hadn't gone live. So we had a couple of weeks, I suppose, to drum up interest from clubs before applications opened in December and closed in March of this year. And as you'll see in a couple of slides to come, the success that we've had for clubs in Cavan that have benefited from the funding of that to deliver their projects that align with the same objectives of the Green Clubs programme. We also had a speaker, a horticulturist and an ecologist on the night. And then finally there, Wilton Waste Recycling, which was very, very impactful to see a local company supporting the implementation of a waste and recycling management plan at our club grounds in Kingspan, Breffni Park and Cavan as well. So for a lot of clubs, I suppose it opened their eyes to what could be achieved at their own club grounds then going forward. There was an opportunity as well then not only to hear from the speakers, but also to interact in a more informal basis after the talks. And we had information stands. So we encouraged and we invited local service providers to come and have a stand on the night. So we had energy providers, solar panels, insulation and energy upgrades for windows and doors providers in the county. We also had our local development company there who delivered the LEADER programme to see what kind of funding supports, in addition to the Climate Action Fund, that they could potentially reach out to deliver on some of their projects. But definitely what I would take from that was the opportunity to engage with those groups. So that was my first time to sit down. Like many of us, I'm sure, on the call, I belong to a GAA club, but to be able to go out and talk to others in clubs around the county, it was the best learning, I suppose, for us, and to engage from a council perspective on that. And for the groups themselves, looking at the funding opportunities from SEAI, from the Community Climate Action Fund, and also from LEADER going forward. So in Cavan ourselves, I suppose it's a result of that community engagement that we've had. And I suppose that orientation event that we held back in October of last year was the starting point of that with the GAA clubs. And Declan Smith, who's our point of contact in the county board, that we've seen huge interest and success from clubs in applying to the Community Climate Action Fund. So in Cavan, more than €430,000 in funding has been approved to GAA clubs, and that's across Strand 1 and Strand 1A. So 13 clubs, so nearly a third, close enough to a third of clubs in Cavan applied for funding, and 9 of those clubs were successful in receiving funding under the current Community Climate Action Fund. In addition then, for Strand 1A, which is the shared island aspect, we also had 2 further GAA clubs, one based in Fermanagh and one based in Armagh, which were also approved funding. So in total, there's 11 GAA clubs going to benefit just from the funding that was allocated to Cavan under that funding stream. Next steps for us, we are proposing to host an event now again in October. So that'll be a year since we had our first large-scale group meeting, and to do that again as part of our Climate Action Week, which we are holding in Cavan from the 14th to the 20th of October. Going back again to Susan's presentation, it's very, very helpful to see what they have done in Waterford for the development of an SEC to undertake that learning and development across all of those 5 thematic areas. And what we have done recently in Cavan is a questionnaire. So our regional coordinator for SECs is Mel Gavin, and over the last couple of weeks we have been doing surveys with the clubs in the county to see what their energy usage has been. And hopefully we are looking that clubs that were eligible for vouchers to undertake energy audits will do so, but also to start the application process for an SEC status and hopefully undertake an energy master plan soon into the future. In addition to that, then looking, I suppose, core to that will be promoting phase 3 of the Green Clubs programme. And whether that is open to all clubs that haven't partaken so far in the national cohort, if they are allowed in, and perhaps maybe those that don't want to do it on a formal basis will still engage with the toolkit on a local level, because I have to commend the GAA and Croke Park and the work that's been done on that toolkit. I think it's probably one of the best toolkits I've seen in terms of access and the structure. You know, it's easy for any GAA club to partake in even a small number of initiatives that aren't high cost, but go a long way towards them achieving their overall goals and taking part in the programme on a national level. I know Jimmy alluded to it, that, you know, they are looking for 2 elements across the 5 thematic areas. And I think it's about encouraging access from clubs to start the process. We don't want to, I suppose, hold the bar too high that they can't see it as being achievable for them on a local level. But just when I finish up here now, for us here in Cavan, we're definitely, I suppose, at the starting point in comparison there to what you'll hear from what you've heard from Waterford, and also what you'll hear from Sharon in Mayo as well. But it's definitely the starting point for us, and something that I think all local authority point of contacts should start with. There was a great atmosphere on the night, and I think that basis will go a long way for engagement going forward. So I hope that's okay. Paul, if there's any questions, or maybe we want to hold till the end.
Thanks very much, Tara. Yeah, that was really good. Your examples and Susan's examples have been really good for everyone, I believe. Yeah, we'll keep questions to the end, and we'll move on to Sharon Cameron now, the Environmental Awareness Officer in Mayo County Council.
Thanks very much, Paul. So can you see that, folks?
Yeah, we can see that.
Good. Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me to participate. And I suppose I'm coming at it at a little bit of a different, because I'm coming from it from the waste side, but it's all about club engagement, and sometimes the waste is an easy in with clubs before you move on to the more complex energy stuff. So as Environmental Awareness Officer, you know, we always would have had engagement with clubs, but it would have been just far more difficult than it is now when the Green Clubs is in place. So we'd be trawling through the GAA website looking for the database of secretaries and chairpersons, and kind of cold calling or cold emailing them. But we had that engagement, and if there was events coming up, electrical recycling event or something like that, we'd be engaging with them. And but my real engagement probably started in November 2022 on the Green Clubs programme. But in the year prior to that, there was a huge piece of work done here in Mayo, which was done. Kurt was very involved in it, from the Connacht Centre of Excellence, and our Caro and our biodiversity / heritage officer, and our regional waste office as well, Sinead Niwanin, and that was to prepare a climate action and sustainability strategy for the McHale Park campus, which included our county grounds and the neighbouring club of Castlebar Mitchells. So this, I think, for the first time looked at all the different themes of green clubs and how every one of them could be addressed within a club grounds. So there was a really good roadmap there for other clubs. Before I even started working with clubs on the ground, we had that really good piece of document there, that good piece of information there for clubs. And again, as the others have said, the county board is so important, and having that rep, or as Jimmy said, having that champion there. So in my engagement began with a workshop held in the Connacht Centre of Excellence back in September 2022, and this was a seminar for all the clubs, and there was a huge turnout on that evening. There was local authority staff giving presentations, and we covered themes of energy, water, biodiversity, smarter travel. There was some experts there in relation to grant supports for clubs, and this was organised with the county board, and we came in as speakers on this, and Kurt was there available to to show the clubs around, to give them a walk around and show them all the excellent work that had been already achieved in the Centre of Excellence. And everyone loves that, to be able to go around and see the practical changes. And that was the first really strong engagement that I would have had with clubs in a room full of people. It was a brilliant evening, but there was just so much information, for the clubs to take in, and everyone was very passionate and wanting to get started after it. But it was just the level of information. So from that, what we moved to then, which I call the McHale Park seminars, which was a series of seminars held for clubs on breaking it down into different themes. So I would have been there on the evening with the waste management evening with my colleague Sinead in the regional waste office, and we would have had all our acids and posters and all of that, the practical stuff that clubs just love to pick up of an evening, and signage and that type of thing. And it was purely just on the waste side of it. But there was also an evening on energy. I think maybe Mel Gavin was involved in that as well. Our heritage officer went in and done, the biodiversity presentation. We also had Swift Conservation Ireland, which are based in Mayo and have done huge work, coming in, also giving a presentation. So they took kind of place over them evenings, and were well attended. Like our waste one, at at the time, I suppose we probably got less than a quarter of the clubs in the county. But if you can get 10 people, 10, 12 people inside in a room at any event of an evening, especially people who are already very busy, it's always a great starting point. So from that then, we moved to a series of regional workshops, and these were organised by our champion, which is Mary Prenti, the planning and training officer. And the ones I was involved with in are the waste management ones, but I would always bring a little bit of biodiversity into that as well. This point has been made already. The reason why there's only 5 of the workshops photographed is because no one showed up for the first one, because it was out of a June evening, looking out at the playing fields and the sun shining. It was the first really fine evening that came, and not like, other than the 2 club volunteers that set up the room for me, nobody showed up. So great learning in that in itself. The next one I done, the room was packed, so and they went really well after that. And we opened these up to members of the public as well. So the Mary Prenti, the planning and training officer, she done these regionally. So she would approach the club that she would feel would be the best fit to lead on these, and they would provide the venue, the cup of tea afterwards, which is really important, and just for that networking piece and people hang around having the chat afterwards. They would often put it up maybe on their own social media, the clubs, to invite the wider public into this as well, because everyone is interested in waste management. So your waste management at home, in your workplace, and in your club doesn't really differ. It's the same thing we do. So there was great interest, really, I suppose, also in some of them from maybe local businesses and that came along to the seminars as well. So these were all really well attended. They ran in the evening time, and on these I would, of an evening, I would, it set the seed for me to be able to say to clubs, look, I'm here to go out to visit you at any stage. So we spoke about waste management and good segregation of waste and waste reduction for the clubs, and things like gear swaps. We talked about litter management, maybe if dog filing was a problem on the grounds. But I always brought in the biodiversity and the pollinator side of it as well, because there's such good resources already there on the pollinators.ie website and the club sports club guide. So we always give that a mention as well. And with these workshops, it gave me an opportunity to link them with other members of staff within our own team here, our community climate action officer, our water community officer in the Law Pro office. So you know, it just I was the first person, but it gave me the opportunity to link them with other people. And for some of them, it might have been, you know, their first real introduction to the Green Club assets. So, like, while this would have been said at the first meeting back in that September in the Centre of Excellence, and it would have been said again for those that came along to the McHale Park seminars. But again, we were saying it, you know, again, probably for the first time to some of the clubs on the ground, and also the promotion of the My Waste assets. So the Green Clubs are just a brilliant toolkit. My Waste have great resources there as well. And when clubs knew that they could get posters, you know, for free, laminated stickers and all that, they were delighted. And I was able to bring samples along for them as well, and you know, samples of caddies and things like that for food waste and the practical tools, and you know, maybe start flagging things like the phase 2 of the program and getting involved in that, maybe flagging things that were coming down the line like the return scheme and how that was going to impact them in the clubs, because plastic bottles seems to be a huge issue for all of the clubs. So from that, we moved to the on the ground engagement, and this is what I've been doing as part of my work as awareness officer. So in follow up to them evening meetings, I have had 14 individual meetings at club grounds. Sometimes Mary Prenty will come along with me, or even, you know, organise these, or she would email me and say, "There's a club there now. Could you go out to that club and pass me on an email address?" And so that engagement is you know, is really, really important. And some of them would just come to me directly following having heard me speak at the evening seminars. And for those maybe that I might get out to, there's always often, like, you know, maybe an online call or a telephone or email support as well. But when I do get out, it's very much site-specific solutions, because the clubs are all so different. You know, you'll have big urban clubs, you'll have some very small rural clubs. Some of them will be taking the waste home, some of them will be paying very large amounts of money for waste, some will be getting their bin sponsored. So it's all different. So we talked about placement of bins, the types of bins and bin stations, and best practice examples maybe that I would have picked up from other clubs. Encourage them to communicate with their coaches and their parents and all of that. They have great means of communication already. They're sending out WhatsApp group messages every week, so, you know, to start using that. We already had worked with Kurt on a really good video for the promotion of good waste management at the Centre of Excellence, so there was resources like that as well. We were encouraging them to make their own little videos, get some of their own club member champions maybe into a video, someone that the kids looked up to, and, you know, to make videos about good segregation, that type of thing. Some of the clubhouses vary. Some of them are used for events and parties, and, you know, they're not always, you know, maybe just purely used by the club. So again, that impacted energy usage and all of that. And as I would go in, like, I would just take a quick walk around, and I'd have a quick look at into the toilets, looking at maybe the showers, the urinals, giving them a small little bit of advice on that side of it as well, or telling them where they could go for advice, and the same with the energy side of it. Um, and as I said, linking with other agencies, and also mentioning maybe the possibility of them installing some Swift nesting boxes at their grounds. And my last slide now in a minute will just show how that has worked. Our heritage officer is also, you know, working with the whole McHale Park campus there, and implementing that initial strategy as well, and the biodiversity actions. What I found for myself on going out to club meetings, because this is, you know, just like a fraction of my work and we're all so busy, is my own note keeping was really important. You know, I just have to, you know, come away and jot down a few notes. And with every club that I visit, I do a follow-on detailed email very quickly after the meeting of everything that we discussed, because I've learned this from my work with Green Schools. You know, it is easy, we're so busy, it's easily get muddled and to forget what you've discussed with each one. And in that email, there will be a link again to the Green Club assets. So I'm reinforcing that message again. You know, you might have heard about it at a seminar, I might have mentioned it in person. I want you to send the link. So these are busy people, volunteers are brilliant, but they're good and they're busy people. And just to have a link there that they can click into, a link again to the My Waste assets. And in a lot of times I would link them with their local waste contractor, because some of them are paying a lot of money to waste contractors, and they might only have a 1-bin system or a 2-bin system not working very well. And I found in that case that worked really well. You just do an email connecting them with the waste contractor, the local commercial waste contractor rep, really happy to come out and meet with them again. And I kind of knew then that it would keep the momentum going. And for me, really, at this stage, like, I kind of feel, look, when I've done that email out, I feel I've done as much as I can at the moment, you know, for that club, and they know where I am now. And that 14 club, in our next steps, you know, we're going to continue to do them visits and get out to clubs on the ground. And a few images again, just to show the difference in clubs. You know, sometimes you'll spot something like the tap that they use for the water, but it's around the back of the clubhouse. So the players know where it is, but the visiting club may not, or the parents with kids there as spectators may not. So things like that we helped and support by giving out some nice kind of signage that we developed for the taps, so they didn't need to go down the route of maybe putting in an expensive water point. Sometimes I'd spot a nice kind of maybe south-facing a bank, and I'd say, well, look, there's your B motel straight away. All you need to do with that is put up a sign on it. Do you know, you already have something there that you need to protect biodiversity, or you'd be just encouraging a few little biodiversity actions depending on the type of club. Some of them can be quite tarmacked and, you know, quite barren of biodiversity, so there's huge potential there. Sometimes the water and community officer would come out of me if there was a local water course, and we'd tie in a project there as well. You know, some of them might, like there was one club, they have access to HB ice cream bins, you know, loads of them. We're not going to make, you know, say you need to change all them. You know, we just talked about maybe placing the bins in a different way, maybe painting some of them to, you know, stuff like that, to highlight the recycling from the waste. We encourage the reuse in their club rooms rather than disposables, and different types of signage. We had very good examples from the Castlebar Mitchell's campus of the bin structure there, so we were able to show them what to do there as well. So that's been like a really quick run through of it, because I know we're tied for time this morning. I just wanted to end with this slide really, because as I said, Swift Conservation Ireland do great work on trying to protect and increase the dwindling population of swifts in Ireland, and they're always on the lookout for sites to put in the nesting boxes. And look, once we find the site, we'll find the funding. You know, we'll get over that, and they're not the most expensive things to do. So we definitely have engaged Linda from the Conservation Ireland with some of the clubs, and she was telling me this week that in Castlebar Mitchell's that this summer there was 3 breeding pairs had already gone in, and I think the boxes are up in less than 2 years, and that's like really good, because it can take several years, you know, to bring these in, and they're up there in Charlestown as well. So it's just a matter of, it's the connections, it's connecting with other people, and that. So it's all bringing all the agencies together, and I'm just a point of contact, offering them support, but linking them with other people as well. And there's my contact details. If any of you on the call today want to drop me an email at any stage, or just ring me and I can chat it through. We share the point of contact in Mayo, so while I tend to do a lot of the waste stuff, we also have our Community Climate Action Officer as well, who also does a lot of work on the funding side of things, the same as the other girls on the call today. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Sharon. That was really good. I want to give Kurt an opportunity to come in and speak as well, because he's been mentioned a few times by both Tara and Sharon. So Kurt, if you want to come in there.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Sharon and Susan and Tara for the presentations. I suppose Mayo has a couple of unique points at the outset. So they're running the program from a GAA point of view was the first pilot at county board level. So they have been running for 2 years. It looks like there's great work happening, and there is, and there's over 60% of the clubs have some level of engagement, but it's taken that sort of time to get that up and running. We're rolling that out. I work at provincial level, and we're rolling that model out into the counties currently. So in the other 4 counties in Connacht, we now have sustainable energy communities registered, another point there just that I see is the timing. So we started, for example, in Galway earlier this year, but it was coming into the season of football. So we're coming back to sort of Sligo, Leitrim and Galway now and Roscommon in Q4 and in the Q3 planning phase. So I would see the year broken up as Q4 and Q1 as engagement and Q3 as prep and Q2 as review and plan, you know, with those officers when they're in place in each county. So I do think that we're seeing and reiterating what Sharon has said, like, and Tara, the small steps. A lot of the clubs will initially go to energy as a straight run, but they're now, as they get more and more educated, you're seeing that they're fully engaged in waste programs and biodiversity programs in particular. So I think I see that as you know, incubation funding, getting them ready, or seed funding at very low cost items, but it's bringing them into the program and they sort of they bounce on from there. On the energy side of it in Connacht, we have them all the county boards now are registered as SECs. At provincial level, we now have a sustainability committee that has representatives from each county. So hopefully over the coming months and years, you'll see more and more flowing down from Jimmy and the Crow Park structure down through the provinces and down onto the ground at county board level, which ultimately will fill the room with all the clubs that are out there. So Q4 for us, for example, across the province, we'll see energy evenings and other thematic areas, bespoke evenings for each of those. Dates will be pushed out for them in the next week or two. We're also, you'll see next week, we've signed a partnership with Pinergy, which will bring the clubs opportunity for solar and renewable energy at source from a wind farm in Cork. So for our 210 communities in Connacht, the energy aspect of it will potentially come from Pinergy in a funded model for their solar. So they'll fund the solar, and I think that'll allow us as a group to focus on all of those other small steps. So SEI and Pinergy will front that and the club evenings. So yeah, I think the structure, we see that the summer months are not an active month because everyone's concentrating on their games and the volunteers are maxed out, and our volunteers are used to coming into seminars and education courses and classes through the winter months. So hopefully you'll see a different level of engagement from the GAA in the coming months and years.
Thanks very much, Kurt. Folks, we're going to move to the last section of our webinar, which is the open forum. So this part is still recorded. So if anybody would like to put their questions in the chat or raise their hand up, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Tom. Tom, you ready to go?
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, perfect. So as Paul said, either raise your hand or enter your query in the chat program. There's a question in there from Catherine. Counties that have had good engagement from GAA clubs, did you approach the clubs or did the clubs approach you, or does it work both ways? I suppose, Tara, can you answer that one?
That's great, Thomas. Yes, that is a very good question, and I'm trying to think who contacted who, but I think it was both on, well, it was a priority and it's a commitment from us in our local authority climate action plan. And Declan was very proactive in starting. I suppose it was probably the first meeting I ever had actually in my role when I started back in September. And I remember meeting with Declan and sitting down and trying to just, we literally met in the office, had a coffee, had an informal discussion about what work the county board were doing, what our plan was in terms of supporting them from a council perspective, what financial supports we had coming down the lines in terms of the Community Climate Action Fund. And from there, it developed then into the steering committee. We had maybe 2 or 3 structured meetings there in Breffni Park to see what could we do to bring that cohort of clubs together on a formal basis and get those expert speakers and agencies involved to give a platform to start, because it does go back, and for a lot of you starting off as local authority points of contact, start with a conversation and start with the basics of what the toolkit is and how they can engage and what the first steps are. And I suppose it's a great, what Jimmy had said there, coming up now on November 9th, that is, I suppose, a target for us as local authority points of contact to re-engage now with the clubs and see how we can support them in maybe the new applicants coming in. Can we bring more on board? Can we at least, for those that we have successfully given funding to, we're in an excellent position to engage with them. Like for us here in Cavan, having 9 of 40, so that's a quarter of them that we're actually financially providing support to. That's a huge financial investment that's benefiting those clubs. And what we're going to see there is everything from your solar panels, your LED light upgrades, your water refill stations being installed, your waste and recycling facilities being upgraded, your swap shops, your biodiversity projects. It's so vast, and it's not, you know, I'm starting at the higher level there of investment, from your solar panels and your LED upgrades to everything such as your seed packs for your biodiversity project or your swap shop. So it can be quite broad in terms of the investment that's needed. But going back again, I think from us in a local authority contact point, and for most of us in our LA CAPs, it is a commitment and a priority that we have given to support the Green Clubs programme. So therefore, if you haven't already made contact, reach out to the county board, see who the rep is there, and have that initial conversation to see where you can bring it in a couple of months, maybe to an orientation event like what we had in the Hotel Kilmore last October, or like leading on then to what Susan is doing. So to the development of an SCC potentially as well for some counties. But yeah, that would be my advice, would be just to reach out, make that initial contact, have that conversation with their point of contact if they have one, if not to the chair if you could, and see where you can move things along from there.
Brilliant, Tara, thanks. Jimmy, you have your hand raised there.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas, and thanks, Tara, for that perspective. I suppose we feel that we've a lot to learn from the process that Kurt used in Connacht to engage all the counties successfully there, starting back with Mayo and all the great outputs that have come from that. So in trying to think about how we'd best get the right person on our side locally, for the likes of yourself, Catherine, to reach out to, is a very important piece of work that we've to do. So I think our plan is to make a presentation to each of the provincial councils in Leinster, Munster and Ulster. Connacht already having the structures in place and the support of Kurt over the last number of years. And once we do that, we'll highlight the benefits of being involved in the Green Club type of programme. All the county chairs would sit on the provincial council, and we'll ask them to identify a champion for us if they haven't done that so far. Once we know who that person is, we can support that initial, I think, communication between yourselves and that person, and provide any support that we can to make sure that a robust structure gets put in place locally that's mutually beneficial. So I think maybe there's a little bit that we can do on our side, coming back to your question, Catherine, to support that interaction. And I think Susan, you helped our county board in Waterford draft an initial invitation to clubs in Waterford, and I think that's a good model. Probably, clubs are getting so many, club secretaries getting so many emails, both from internal and external sources. They see something coming in from the county secretary, and they'll prioritise taking a look at that over other correspondence they might get. So I think that's a good model. After we get that little structure set up, that communication would go from the GAA County Board, inviting them to an orientation evening or something equivalent to what we've seen examples of there happening successfully. So that's what I'd add to that.
Yeah, Pádraig, do you want to come in there?
Thanks, Paul. And I just follow on what Jimmy's saying. Just to bear in mind, I guess, all of our clubs, they're all run by volunteers that are obviously busy during the daytime doing their own stuff and running their own clubs. And Susan seemed a little bit frustrated that 8 of the 50 odd clubs got involved, and you were talking to the converted. But we are confident all the clubs are getting there. But certainly having somebody or reaching out to the clubs and getting them all together in a central location within a county, with a cup of tea and a biscuit some evening when everything is quiet, really does make a huge difference. I mean, not every province is going to have a Kurt, and not every county is going to have a Tara, a Susan, or a Sharon that's going to take the initiative. But definitely, I think clubs want to get the opportunity to see what be spoken to in a nice, friendly manner. And like, we struggle at it from Jimmy, and Meada would admit that we find it hard from Croke Park to get all the clubs on a particular direction, and sometimes bringing it back locally, I think, is probably the best way to get that movement. But I would say is, hang in there with us, everybody. We are. We know we're on the right journey, and if you see, as I say, I was down in Cavan last year. I can't believe it's almost a year ago, Tara, and I still speak about it to Jimmy and Meada. I was blown away. Every club in the county was there. It was absolutely fantastic, and you now are reaping the benefit of it, and there's just no stopping what you're going to do there. I think every county can be the same.
Thanks, Pádraig. There's no other questions there at the moment. One I would have is, has anyone any ideas how to support not alone GAA clubs regarding sustainability initiatives? I know mywaste.ie have a waste management toolkit for clubs and sporting organisations. Has anyone else any knowledge to share there? You can put it in the chat either. Meada, do you want to come in there?
Sorry, Tom, do you mean for sports clubs in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're actually supporting the Department of Environment, who are working on a pilot, which is an adaptation of the Green Club Toolkit for kind of more generic across sports. And so they're working with any sports organisation really that's interested. And Jimmy can correct me, but I think they're asking these sports organisations to nominate 5 clubs for a pilot phase. So they're already working kind of rebranding and developing a toolkit and getting learnings from other sports organisations. So I'm sure, I'm not sure what Jimmy probably better coming in, what the information flow to local authorities maybe could be, but we can definitely ask the department to keep people updated on that, I'm sure. But just let you know that's happening.
Yeah, Pádraig, you have your hand raised there again?
No, Thomas.
No,
sorry.
Okay.
I don't know how
Paul,
to let you take it down.
No worries. Paul, do you want to?
Yeah, I just had a few questions myself, Tom, if that's okay. And Meada's kind of touched on it there. It was about, I think Susan mentioned it was about sharing the toolkits with everyone else, not just GAA clubs. And just if you could briefly give us the GAA view, Jimmy or Meada, on the use of the toolkits with anyone else.
Yeah, so it is difficult to communicate, resources and information to a lot of our units through our own communication channels, whether that be the website or the club newsletter, or through the county secretary, who we then ask to forward information on to all the clubs in their counties. But we're confident that, as people have said there, that there's a really quality resource there that's very useful, and a lot of work went into its development. So while we don't have statistics of who's engaging with it, we do know, I suppose, anecdotally from the likes of feedback from yourselves, or that we've got through our own network, that the toolkit is being used. Clubs that have been involved in the programme have been more successful in applying to external grant opportunities, and sometimes they're giving us little testimonials that being involved in the programme or being aware of the toolkit has really helped in that. And we know, I suppose, that it's on the department's radar. It's been what they're hoping to, as Meada said, model a generic sports green club programme based on the work we've done, and we're supporting them with that. And it was referenced in the Sports Capital Grant environmental conditions on the last call. So we know we've a lot of work to do, as they say, in terms of getting the message of it out there. But I think the next year will really see a significant increase in its use, because the relationship with yourselves is becoming stronger. We've lots of references for it in various policies, and the general, I think, public awareness of the impact of climate change, and particularly in our context on our fields, and that is making clubs very conscious of it and escalating energy costs. So I think we'll see, and we're asking everybody to help with this, because, as I say, if we just stick to our traditional channels, we kind of end up getting the same results. So if you could help us promote it as we open phase 3, that would be great.
Okay.
Thanks, Jim.
Mida, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, it was just to say, I suppose, like, we're proud of the toolkit, and it's a living resource that we'll keep updating all the time. But a toolkit on its own, we know there's toolkits, the proliferation of toolkits, like, we know it's not enough on its own, even if it's a good toolkit. It's really, eventually we want the Green Club to be a club-led project, but that we could be looking 5-10 years down the line before we can step back. And between we've heard the stories of, like, you doing some great hand holding at local authority level, and we're doing the hand holding within the GAA at club and county level. So I suppose that's where we're lucky that we were able to build on existing programs within the GAA to get to that. And not all sports organisations, a lot of them really want to get to that, but they're not there. That's part, like, a toolkit on its own isn't enough. It's about that capacity building and support and building confidence in clubs. So that will come over time, but that's probably maybe a bigger challenge than even having a resource like a toolkit, which, you know, is openly available. We are doing, Jimmy mentioned a European project we're involved in. We are leading a community engagement part of that, which is looking at maybe not the exact thematic actions across energy, but the kind of taking the step back. How do you build your green team capacity within your club? And again, that's trying to work across different sports organisations. So that's European project. So that will be published probably maybe towards the end of next year, and will be widely available. But I think, yeah, it's the challenge not only in having the resource, but exactly what you're trying to do there in local authority level is supporting community organisations, sports clubs, or the ones to make use of that resource, and to kind of to have the confidence and to use a resource like that to benefit both themselves and the climate.
Thanks. Sharon, do you've point out?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something else I thought of there, and it is the use of local media and getting the message out that way. Now, we're fortunate here because I have done a monthly slot for our local radio station, Midwest Radio, for many years, and we can pick a different topic every month, and we can cover green clubs in that. But, like, all your local radio stations will be very engaged in covering local matches, local events, and they'll all have their own sports reporters. So it might be just another way of getting the message out. So if I'm on the radio talking about this, it's a parent of a child in a club that's going to maybe pick up on it, that they've said, I might get involved in that. It mightn't be the people that are there already, the volunteers that are already there, or they're coaching and are already very time pressed. So it might just be another way of getting the wider message out and creating a whole good feel about this thing, that there's all this brilliant work going on, and any clubs out there that aren't already involved. So one, definitely maybe to consider if you have a good relationship with your local media as well.
Thanks, Sharon. Paul, I think that's everything there now. There's no questions outstanding.
That's great, Tom. Thank you. Guys, we're going to wrap up the recording now shortly. I just want to share my screen one more time. And just to remind everybody, if you have any questions from us, the Carrow is your first port of call, and these are the email addresses you can reach us on, or you can contact me or Thomas directly through our own emails. And just to say thank you for watching.